You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Stacy and now is it Steele?
Steel. Like Man of Steel.
Oh my goodness, that is the most badass name I have ever heard.
I know, it's not girly at all. It is such a masculine name.
You don't even have to say tough as nails. You just say, I'm tough as steel. I'm tough as Stacy. Superman copied you with that name, didn't he?
Yeah.
So Stacy, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I am an attorney at law. I'm a corporate attorney for a media entity in Jamaica, which is one of the largest media entities in the Caribbean region. And I have a podcast called Pep Talk Podcast Jamaica, which is geared at helping young professionals like myself navigate the world of work, navigate finances, and relationships. So that's the premise of the podcast, which basically came about because I'm a young professional myself. And they're just issues that are unique to young professionals in the working world in Jamaica that I thought I wanted to share with others.
Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about what you do professionally. So what type of law do you really work with?
I do corporate law.
Okay, so when you're dealing with corporate law, is it a lot like how it is in America, or is it a little bit different in Jamaica?
Well, it's similar in terms of the process. What would be different would be the entities that you would have to relay matters to. So, for example, as a corporate attorney, if you want a company to be registered or incorporated, you would go to the Companies Office of Jamaica, whereas you wouldn't do that in America. You would have your own entity that would do that. But it's the same process. It's just that the stakeholders would be different.
What types of problems do you face dealing with corporate law? Like, I really know nothing about corporate law. And is that does that deal with businesses and kind of the way they treat their employees?
Well, with corporate law, the only client that you do have is the company versus a law firm where you have many different clients. So I am an in-house counsel. I do not go to court. We outsource our matters to law firms for that. So while I am in-house, we do a lot of paperwork, a lot of trademarking, a lot of defamation law. If person should use our content without our permission, we do that. Now, issues that you just faced as a young professional in the working world, be it a corporate entity, private sector, or government entity, is basically, for example, age discrimination. People see you for your age and not so much for your experience. And that is a problem.
So you feel like people kind of see you as your age being a little young, not having a rounded out mind or an experience of what the world is. That's very, very true, because a lot of people are pretty surprised about when they start talking to me. They're like, you're very wise for your years. I'm like, that's only because I've experienced talking to so many different people and I've got a better rounded view than my own little area. I think a lot of what chalks up to the answer of what millennials are or just being a young aged kid is the fact that they don't have an outlet or a way of getting new information than what's in their area and what's directly kind of correlated into their environment, which comes down to the basis of their friends. You're 21 years old. The judgment someone's going to make on you is the fact that you're going to go out to the bar every single night and get drunk just like all the 21-year-olds. But that's because they don't have an aspiration to want to go out and explore the world just yet.
I agree 100%, because as a person, a young professional or a millennial, I go to a lot of board meetings. And when you think board meetings, you think older people. You get me? And so oftentimes I am the youngest person in that room. And I'm quite fine with it because I am there not because of my age, but because of my experience and because of my knowledge and because of my qualifications. And so that's what you're trying to get people to recognize first, instead of recognizing your youthful, effervescent presence in the boardroom.
So you feel like a lot of people kind of you start trying to talk. Do you think it's on the fact that when you're talking or trying to explain something that it might be rational and actually might be an insight into the company, like what you guys are especially dealing with? Do you feel like a lot of people look at your age, or are they looking at your gender?
Age. It's not the gender.
Because I see,
No.
I heard a little bit of problems, like a lot of people, like women still not getting, I guess, treatment in the workplace is right. I don't know if you've ever experienced that type of thing. I have seen like shows where like a woman tries to like say something or give an idea out, and then she just gets dismissed. And I'm like,
What?
even though it might be something smart or educated, like a lot of the reference I guess I could say that where I kind of saw this was like on a little bit of older TV shows like sitcoms,
Right.
where it seems like they weren't seen as looked at in the right light. But I'm like, I
Right.
don't think that should stop anybody from having a good idea, whether they're a woman, whether they're gay, whether they're whatever. I think
I
definitely
agree.
should be open to experience. Like if it's a good idea, you're not going to do it if it's going to make your company money and if it's going to help get your company out of a situation.
Thank you. That's where I'm coming from too. I think it shouldn't really matter who the person is. There should be no level of discrimination if the person has a good, viable opinion that could help your company. What is the harm in considering it? What is the harm in allowing them to speak? What do you have to lose? Absolutely nothing.
So did your kind of way of into law, like how did you start going into that? Like you grew up in Jamaica, I'm guessing, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's completely different from where I'm from. Now I'm from like a beach town, but I've only experienced Jamaican women and Haitian people I work at my hotel. That has given me a
Oh.
wide range of what people's cultures are from, and really
Mhm.
culturing me myself, and also showing me a little bit of what it's like to be a minority. I'm the only white guy in all like Hispanic or different race staff, and
Right.
it really kind of expanded my horizons as I never ever really felt uncomfortable around them. I really felt really comfortable. I was like, they're just people. I've always kind of been raised to kind of instill that. A lot of people see like, oh, it's the minority effect. Like you're used to
Yeah.
feeling out of place in a place where you're not surrounded by like-minded individuals. I was like,
Mhm.
but at a young age, I never was seen to question why someone looked different from me or
Yeah.
even bring that up. Well, it was the whole reason because it's very hard for people to understand what it is like to feel uncomfortable around people that don't look like you.
Yeah.
And when you say that, like you can chalk it up to the same reason why a Hispanic person wouldn't be comfortable around a group full of white people because he feels out of place. But I
Mhm.
sense that out of place is really something wrong with the society that we might be having today.
Yes, and the mindset of the persons in society. But in Jamaica, we are primarily of African descent, so you will not feel out of place, right? Even though we have a range of persons, different ethnicities, and that's why we have our motto: "Out of many, we are one people," which means no matter your background, your ethnicity, we are still one people. We are Jamaicans at the end of the day. It doesn't matter your color, your class, your creed. So we really don't see color because majority of us look the same. So the struggle would never be because of the color of your skin. It may be because of your gender, but I've never experienced it. But persons, they have experienced it. It may because of your age or something to that effect, but it's never, hardly ever because of your color.
And that's really eye-opening for me because being in like America, it's really hard for like race not to be a thing. Everyone's so
Mhm.
tensed up about it. It's very, very pressured. I'm pretty sure you probably have heard some things about it over here.
Mhm.
And I look at that, I'm like, people that are just kind of willing to look at somebody and not judge them for their thoughts, but judge them on the color of their skin. It's not
Mhm.
even to show like a character of like, oh, this is what I believe. No, people are the same. We're all unique. I judge a person based on the respect they give me. If you give me respect, I'll give you respect back. Doesn't matter what color you are. Plus, I hear someone that like from a different place, like Bulgaria, Russia, or even Jamaica, and you guys have this awesome fucking accent. Where I'm like, I wish I had that. I sound so bland. Like when I talk, I sound like I'm reading off like a screen.
No, it's fine. You want a Caribbean accent? Like,
Yes, it's
what?
awesome.
Is it? Well, I can't really hear it when I speak to other Caribbean people. Well, Jamaican people. I can't really hear the accent. I can hear a Caribbean accent from somebody from Barbados or Trinidad or somewhere else in the Caribbean. I lived in Barbados for 2 years for school. And for the first year, I did not understand a word they were saying to me. I swear to you. It was sad. But I slowly got into it and
Yeah,
I got used to it.
you adopt the culture around you. Isn't that crazy? My cousins are they're just like me, but they grew up in Hawaii. So when I go and
So cool.
but when I go and see them, they speak a thing called pidgin, which is like a little bit like a
Oh.
Ebonics, I guess, but it's more like it sounds a lot like how you kind of speak a little bit Caribbean. They cut a lot of their words out. Like when they start talking,
I know what you're talking about.
and
Yeah.
I'm sitting there talking to him, and I'm like, "Hey, man, you want to go get some food?" He's like, "I'm full on aloha, thank you." I'm like,
What?
"What?" And like he goes, "I am full on aloha, thank you." And I'm like,
Oh.
"Does that mean you're full on what?" He goes, "I'm full on life, man." And he has to
Okay.
dumb it down into English for me. I'm like, "Why don't you just say it so I don't have to ask you 50 times?" Like I'm driving by the fast food place right now. If you don't tell me right now what you want, I'm not going. Like I'm not like. And he's like sitting there trying to like I guess speak, but it's a faster way. But it's so crazy just to see how he's from the same family I'm from, but he grew up in a whole completely different environment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even if you go you said you went to Barbados for a couple of years,
Yes.
you picked up their culture. That's like that if you go to New York down here. You know, I talk like how I do right now, but if I went to New York and I lived there for a couple of months, I'd be like, "Hey, give me one of them sandwiches, ah." I could just start screaming picking up
Right.
the accent.
That's so true. That was the case for me. I started to say a lot of Bajan, that's what they call it. Bajan slangs, like cheese on bread, which is literally cheese and bread. But they're not saying cheese and bread as in like the food. They're saying cheese and bread as an expression for like, oh my God, if that makes sense.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
So instead of "oh my God," you say
that's
"cheese
a,
and bread."
cheese on bread, like something like that. Cheese on bread. And
That's awesome.
I'm like, what? You want cheese and bread? They're like, no, it's an expression, like if you're
Oh, okay.
upset
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something. I'm like, oh, okay.
I think it's crazy because like I tell people like if you have a chance to travel, you might as well travel because it's really something to do. Like if I went to Jamaica, that would be a whole revolutionary experience for me, only
Yeah, it
because of the
would
fact
be.
I haven't went anywhere different from being in a couple states. I went to
hmm
Hawaii and been like around that kind of what gave me a little bit of what a Caribbean lifestyle is kind of like, but it's really none in the same.
True. It really isn't. But you should come to Jamaica or any island in the Caribbean because when I went to Barbados, I remember saying to myself, this is like Jamaica, seriously. Minus the fact that I cannot understand what they're saying. The experience is very similar. And I always say if you go to one Caribbean island, you've pretty much been to all of them because they have similarities culturally that you can identify with. And so it's easy for me to feel at home in another Caribbean country.
Yeah, do you find it like a little bit difficult, like trying to understand, at least, or get adapted to a new kind of environment than what you're from?
Yes, 100%.
What would you find the most difficult? Just trying to kind of figure out the place. Like, I guess I could kind of use the example of like when someone is a tourist somewhere and they don't really know the area that well, they're kind of confused. But
hmm
it seems like it's very different than if you go to a whole other country or something because you're experiencing something where laws and all these other things are completely different.
Yeah, that's also true. And let's talk about me being in America and the fact that in Jamaica we drive on the left hand side of the road and you guys don't.
So
So
you
there's
drive
a
on the wrong side of the road.
no, you guys drive on the wrong side of the road.
I
No,
I've talked to so many people from other countries like, "Yo, you drive like idiots." I'm like, "How do we drive like idiots? You guys drive on the wrong side of the road." He goes, "No, you're the
no,
only one."
you're.
I'm like, "That makes sense because we still use the metric system and
Oh
nobody
my
uses that thing
God,
anymore."
nobody uses that anymore.
Everybody
But
talks in kilometers, and I'm sitting there like, "Why don't you
yeah,
just say what you
that's
mean?"
that's how we talk here too. Everything is in KM, everything here. But it's definitely a culture shock once you leave. Jamaica and you go to America and everything is just so different. The fact that we spell everything the British way and you guys don't. Center is CENTER for you, and for us it's CENTRE, you know, and you guys think we spell it the wrong way. Like you guys are spelling it the wrong way.
I don't think that at all, because I know how to spell center correctly. You're not talking about the center of a circle. You're talking about the center like a place. Now I spell that with an E, and a lot of people tell me that's wrong. Even my phone tells me it's wrong. I'm like,
really?
No, that's how you do it. But my phone puts a little red squiggly line under it. I'm like, you're tricking me. You're tricking me.
Oh my God.
I think
Also correct.
What was your impact, I guess I would say, for coming to America, then leaving your home? Like, it obviously had to be crazy new experiences, probably wonderful when you were here. But did you find you got kind of tired of it? Like a little bit, like everything kind of seemed like the people kind of seemed a little bit more down than where you're from?
I wouldn't say down, but kinda, if you get what I'm saying. In Jamaica, everybody, as tourists would say, is everybody is irie. If you understand the term irie.
I am a big reggae fan, so I think
okay. So everybody's a little bit, really like cool, chill, irie. It's never really a dull moment with the people here, In America, everybody is not irie. Let's just say that.
Well, yeah, everyone's kind of tense. I think people forgot. I think just because we have so many, like, we're looked at kind of seen with a heavily eye just from all corners of the world. Mostly because of the fact that we want to be on television 24/7. But then once we start getting all the attention, everyone kind of gets into this weird, like, in for their self kind of aspect, which I tell people, like, it's hard to kind of, like, I'll see myself kind of fall into that mindset too. But I work with Bulgarian students who are my age and Romanian students, all these different types of students, whether they're from Siberia and all these places. And I talk to them and they're like, you're different. I'm like, how am I different? I'm like, how am I different, man? They're like, in a good way. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you're not like most Americans. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not like most Americans? Because I'm looking, I'm like, they look like me though. So it's like, I am American. They're like, you actually care. And that's what really hit me. And I was like, what do you mean actually care? They're like, when you ask about our day, you actually give a shit. I was like, I do, because I truly would like to know how you are doing. And they say, but when people ask us here, like a random person off the street in America, it's really, really hard to tell if they actually mean what they're saying or they're just creating small chat.
I agree with that 100%. And let me tell you this. Question, these students that you work with, are they on the work and travel program?
Yes, they are.
I asked because I was on the work and travel program like 10 years ago in Wisconsin. And I worked at a hotel. And it was a very good experience. So I kind of understand what they're saying when...
And you know what the crazy part about that is? The whole idea that you went to Wisconsin. We've had about 12, 13 students out of like the 20-something we have that have quit. And the only reason that the rest of them haven't quit is because they're all afraid of not getting back into the program again when they go back home. They don't want to be there anymore. And that's because we live in a very small kind of town, but it's also very, very, like, we're completely understaffed and a lot of pressure. And when you people get pressured, they get overwhelmed. And what they do with that overwhelming feeling is they project it out onto somebody else.
Yes.
So everybody's constantly angry. It's not a very comfortable environment, I would say. But, like, I've been there for a couple of years. I like some of the people there, but I also get screamed at in different languages every single day, only because everyone's really, really pressured to hit expectations in reality when they're doing twice the work of some people. Like you being able to experience Wisconsin, that's more of a homey type of state. They're more seen as homegrown when it comes to the fact that they have values when it comes to treating people in a different way. Where my town, it's like going to like New York or something. It's all about business. It's all about profit. It's all about
fast-paced. Yeah. And it's fast-paced. Go, go, go. Everything is urgent, urgent, urgent. That sounds like corporate Jamaica right there.
I try and tell people, like, this is probably where it stems off into your pep talk podcast. The whole factor is you start looking at the money aspect of things. You truly don't give a shit about the actual person anymore.
Where is the humanity? Once you start caring more about the money that you can make, you start to care less about the people who can help you to make the money. And that is a problem, because I think the people should come first. The people should be your first priority. And I think if you treat people well, you treat people with respect, they are more than willing to do the work. They're more than willing to put in the time to see to it that the company does profit in the end. So you need to actually take care of the people so they can take care of you.
How hard is it for you to, like, at least after like a long day or something, dealing with like kind of a bunch of, I wouldn't say corporate suits, but kind of corporate suits, like people that like our idea or my idea of a corporate suit, at least from my experience here, they don't really seem to have a voice. They're just kind of living a life that is like a disguise. They're working like Jim that works the 9 to 5. A lot of people in America do that. Is that different for you down where you live?
Not really. As a young professional in corporate Jamaica, you really don't have a voice, if you ask me, because you speak and you could lose your job. You don't speak and then you get anxiety, you get depressed. Mental health is really serious. And all these negative things start taking place because you are forced to not speak. But at the end of the day, you need money and you need a job. But I think that corporate Jamaica offices and other entities need to facilitate some kind of open door policy where workers can actually be free to express themselves without any repercussions. Just be open and honest, and if you can do something about it, do something about it. Don't sweep it under the rug. Do not let them speak their minds only for you not to do anything about it, because then they're going to feel undervalued, underappreciated, and then they start to have anxiety and they start to get depressed and possibly suicidal, and you don't want that.
Is your fear for that? Is that the main reason why you focus on kids ages 20s to 30s?
Right. Yeah, that is a big deal. And I think we have an episode coming up about anxiety and the young professional. A lot of young professionals in the working world in Jamaica, they have anxiety so bad that they are hospitalized. And this stems from stress from the workplace, and it cannot be healthy. It is not healthy. The workplace need to do something about balancing the work that's given to these young persons who come into their organizations, because they're really messed up. At the end of the day, they're messed up. At the end of the day, they're taking homework. They wake up, they go to work, and they repeat the cycle again. It cannot be healthy.
I think a lot that's just not even seen in Jamaica either, because I experience that on a daily basis. I get cursed at in multiple different languages, but I also know that we're in summertime. It's very, very busy. We don't have the proper tools to get the job done. So people are constantly being forced to kind of hit a certain deadline, and they don't have the ability to hit that deadline just because they don't have the option to put towels in a room or something. And then they get people yelling at them all day. And I always kind of keep that in the back of my mind when someone yells at me. Like if I get cussed out in Spanish or get cussed out in Haitian or cussed out in, so it doesn't matter, because I know during wintertime when we do have the necessities, we do have the objectives to complete the goal. I know how these people are. I can literally tell one of them, like I told them today, like, hey, I've been having a really rough day. Can you make it as easy on me as possible? And at the end of the day, she tipped me $5. Usually they don't feel the need to ever do that. And I tried to give her back her money. She said no. And she gave me a hug and said, it's okay. And even though some days she'll curse me out in so many different times where I'm like, wow, and I don't even want to be near her. But I've seen these people in the good side of their life, which is who they truly are. It's when they're not being overwhelmed, but the pressures you're seeing, whether it comes to anxiety, whether it comes to things. I work with a person who is, maybe like a good 7 years older than me. He's around 28, 27 years old, but he's in the same job I'm doing. And he's not very, very happy, but he also has to take a bus because he doesn't have a vehicle. And I, not to give myself glory in anything, not to even do anything, but I remember one time him complaining about not having money for the bus. I'll give him a couple bucks for the bus. But sometimes I'll offer to give him money for a bus ride and he won't take it because he has pride. And I tell them, look, I have it. You might as well take it. Only thing I'm going to spend it on is some stupid like drink at a store or something. Just go do it. I'd rather help you get home safe. It's wintertime. It's cold out. And he won't take it. So what I'll do is I'll leave before him, but I'll drop like $5 in front of his path. So then when he finds it and he's like, dude, I found $5 and I made it home. Thank God. And I won't tell him a single thing I did. I won't tell him what I did about it. I'll just be like, dude, that's awesome, man. Like I offered it to you before, offered you money before if you didn't want to take it, but that's cool. You found it. Someone's looking out for you. If he needs that to get him through the rest of his days or just get him through the day, that's fulfillment for me.
That's really nice.
I don't need anybody to know that I did that. I don't really care. And that wasn't a shout out to me at all on this podcast. I just think if more people truly looked in the aspect of caring about one another, whether it comes to their mental health, let me tell you, I come from, it's not the best childhood, but nobody really has a good childhood, but
True.
It comes from, I also know what it's like to be alone. I know what it's like to be stuck with your thoughts. And I know a lot of my thoughts aren't the best, I think a lot what's happening in the world today where kids are experiencing more anxiety because they're afraid to talk to people is because when they do talk to people, it is the fact that everyone just complains or they're afraid to get yelled at.
Yep. That's exactly correct. It's because of how the environment within which you work, how it is structured. It's not the work itself. It's the environment and how it is structured that is the problem. And that's why you have to have, these employers really look at the structure of their environment and the structure that they have created and try to make some changes. Because the way it is currently structured, at least in Jamaica, you have people so afraid to approach anybody because they don't want to get yelled at. They don't want to look incompetent. And so they just bottle it all up inside. I have a question.
Talking to one of them right now.
I'm one too.
I literally will like say something like, "Hey, you made me work 7 days. I don't have a day off anymore." And he'll be like, "Oh, you think you fucking deserve?" And just start going off on me. And I feel like an asshole for trying to just get a day off. And I feel like
really
all these pressures, and after years it's finally had mounted to the point where I'm like, I don't want to be without a job, but I don't want to keep being miserable because the fact I'm literally like, as soon as I get home, I try and keep it out of my home life, and then home life might not be at the best situation. So then you end up wanting just to lay in bed and not experience the world anymore. And it creates just, if you let it build up, it creates this ever mounting growing of like pressure on you, and you feel like someone put a wet towel over you or something. You don't want to ever go do anything. Your aspiration to go hang out with your friends doesn't happen anymore. Less motivated.
You are demotivated, completely demotivated, to the point where it's time to go to work the next day and you're like, I'd rather be anywhere but here. That's how you know it's bad. When you're like in the parking lot and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And you have to force yourself to go in the building. Oh my God,
you're hitting so close to home. And this is the only reason I say that is because I know a lot of people in the world today are afraid of not having a job to the point where they're literally like, hey, I'm going to take this constant shit every single day. I try to think of it in the aspect, I know that they're good people, but they're under a lot of pressure, which is true. But also at the same time, like I do pull into work every morning and I do sit in my car for an extra 5 minutes, hoping that,
Me too.
I get sent home. I get something going on. I literally walk in, just put on headphones nowadays because you try and say like, hey, could you like, especially all right, for a simple example, we have no like linen at our hotel. So it's very hard to finish a room when you don't have towels to put in the room. So you don't get to get out early. You have to wait until like work your whole shift, a long, stressful day. It ends up building ever mounting pressure. But at the beginning, I see a person, literally they're taking washcloths or hand towels, whatever you want to say, out of someone's cart and putting it in their own, literally making them have less. And I see that. And I'm like, this is the greatest aspect and representation of what humanity is. We are willing to make someone else fight and work harder just so we can have an easier pass. And I saw that and I was like, this is literally the fucking jungle. I'm like, that person now has none. And I literally said something. I was like, hey, do you think you could leave him like 1 or 2 so he has enough to kind of at least get started? And I immediately got cursed out. I immediately got yelled at and projected on. And I'm like, I just looked at him and I was like, okay. And it's slowly, as I'm getting berated, I just put my headphones in and just kind of sat there. And I explained this to people like, then why don't you leave? I'm like, it's the thing. Why don't more people just choose to try and find something new? And I think it's the whole idea. We're scared of what new is. I'm scared of what new is.
It could be, you could end up in a worse situation and nobody wants to take that risk. Because is it worth it?
It's better having, like, for me, it's better having a paycheck than not having one at all. Like, knowing that if I'm ever out of money, how long is it going to take for me to actually get a job again?
Exactly.
When it might be relatively easy to get one, but a lot of things that get shown on the news and a lot of things that get shown in society today is the factor that jobs aren't that easy to come by.
Exactly.
You know, things aren't easy to get across. Like, this is the worst time to be out of the job market. And you start hearing stuff like that. You'd rather waste your years of your life just being berated and yelled at every single day and like worthless trash. I don't know if you can relate to that, but
I can.
that hits so hard for me. And I'm like, it really brings into my whole kind of understanding of what I was saying in the beginning, where I was focusing on like, you think it's a gender thing? No, it's a fucking people thing. It's a thing. We want to just we want to be something, but we don't want to take that risk of having nothing to get somewhere.
Exactly. And that is so sad. That is so sad. As humans, we need to do better. Everybody is out for themselves. So much for one for all and all for one. Like, nobody cares about that. It's like me all the time. Forget about you. And you can figure your way out on your own. And I think that mentality is so messed up. So messed up.
You're literally throwing a kid in the water who doesn't know how to swim and expecting them to.
Oh my God. I say this all the time. People expect, or bosses expect persons to either sink or swim. Sink or swim. They're not telling you anything. They're not showing you anything. Figure it out on your own. You are going to sink or swim. And if you sink, you're out of here. And if you swim, then thumbs up to you.
Yeah, you made it through. And I hear that. And it's like, I understand the boss aspect, but I also try and see it. I always try and see the other person's perspective, whether it's in an argument that I'm in, like if I'm the other side and they're the other side, I try and see it from what they've kind of understood too. But I feel like a lot of people don't think in that manner. A lot of people don't care about the other person's opinion. Like, I see someone that's pressured and yelling at me, taking away my days. Yeah, that sucks for me. But at the same time, like, I understand the ever mounting of pressure he has too, or she has. And I'm like, that makes it understandable. Like, when I get yelled at by a housekeeper, I'm like, I get it. You're older. You're not happy that we're basically making the same amount of money, considering I'm way younger than you. I'm practically your grandkid. So I understand the whole talking down point. But I tell people, like, I will go out of my way to help you if you treat me with respect. But as soon as you lose respect for me, you're losing respect for people in general. You're so easily going to mislabel them or just mistreat them, calling them a dumb millennial. Like, I'm pretty intelligent for my age because I've experienced so much.
I think when older people say millennial, they say it with such a tone, like it's so bad to be a millennial. You serve no purpose whatsoever. You know nothing.
It's literally like justifying the old basis of like race. You're saying like it's like saying if someone was colored or someone was white, you're labeling them and then considering that whole stereotype, like everyone of that gender or everyone of that race is a certain way.
Right. And I think that's what older people do when they call us millennials. They're like, you're of that generation where you're all lazy and you don't like to work. And I think it's so wrong.
And then you find out that millennial works 2 jobs and is only sleeping 3 hours a night. And you wonder why he's upset because he's not happy. You know, the main thing a lot of people do is they go to college. And you know what happens when you go to college? You're basically using it as a safeguard because you're afraid of either like you're like me, you took a year off and you realize that working 2 jobs and working these types of things is not a life you want to live. And it's the same reason why your parents kind of force you to go into college or pursue your education, give up you that backup plan, because they know what it's like to suffer.
Exactly.
They know that they've done things in their life. I think a lot of the time, though, like when you look at older generations that look at, like, say, millennials and look at these types of people that are of a younger generation, they think of us as not have being exposed to the world yet. And I tell them there's a problem with kids nowadays with anxiety, and you see it at younger and younger ages now. Like, I know kids that are 6 years old that suffer really bad anxiety disorders to the point where they don't talk anymore. And that's only because they've already been exposed from either their parents being misguided in what they display around the environment of the child, kind of showing them, oh, like, it's very hard for a mother of 3 to work 2 jobs and not show the struggle at home. It's difficult for her. And back in the day, like, you didn't have to do that. There was a family connection, there was support, there was help, and the world wasn't as so, I guess, so harsh, but so out for itself. Like, people are out for themselves now, and they're willing to step on the necks of others to get out there. It's like, when you is this the type of stuff you focus on in your podcast?
That's exactly what I focus on. When I have my podcast, we look at abuse of power in the workplace and how superiors abuse their power in order to get what they want at the extent of belittling and making you feel less than as a young professional in the workplace. So yeah, you're right. Everybody is out for themselves. And that's exactly what we focus on with Pep Talk.
I think it's crazy because, like, it's not even really a pep talk when you get down to the basis of it. It's stating a fact, how people need to start changing their ways to care about one another. Nobody's doing it anymore. You know, the statistics for, I always say this, the statistics for family dinners, the average family that used to eat maybe 7 times a night together is now reduced to 2 to 3 nights, if lucky. You know, that's only because Netflix and technology has become such a main influence into our world. But I always chalk up the idea that people are full, and they're not full of the right things. They're not full of love and caring and compassion and communication. They're filled with disconnection, hatred, anger, and problems. And that doesn't create a positive environment for anybody. That doesn't create a life you want to live. You don't want to be miserable and overworked all the time. You want to have days you relax. Like, you know, you have that day off, and then when you know that work is the next day, you are completely drained as soon as you get there. But it's like, oh, I got to go back to work tomorrow. And then, like, you have the first 5 minutes at work, you have so much energy and so much, like, oh yeah, that was awesome. And then the work comes back in. You're like, oh, shit.
And then you open your emails and it's like, oh God, I did not miss this.
It's difficult because I think a lot more people need to take what I would call not a day off, but just take a relaxation period. That doesn't mean a week off from work. That means literally take a couple hours in the day to truly do something that invigorates you.
I love it, because when we did the episode Anxiety and the Young Professional, one of our tips was to take time for yourself throughout the day. Take a 5-minute break. If you need to walk, if you need to think, you need to do something, do it, because you will feel refreshed when you return to your desk. So I like that you said that. I agree with it.
Everyone has something how they cope with their problems, but I think a lot of the times now people lose what that is, whether it's something they enjoy or whether it's something they feel like they need to do. Like for me, I needed to work out. It turned into a part where it was my stress relief. And now it's became more of a job, and that's because of how I'm not handling it effectively. And it takes me, like, the whole day. I'll be like, I can't wait till I get to the gym and just release some stress. You know, I'm going to be out there 2 hours putting the phone on do not disturb. You can't get a hold of me every time I go. That's the only time you cannot talk to me. And that turns into a job. I get to the gym and I go and push up that weight, and next thing I know, I'm like thinking in my mind's somewhere else. It's thinking about what's the day going to be like tomorrow, and is it going to be okay? Am I going to get?
And like, you start to get anxiety immediately when you start thinking like that.
And then the next thing you do, you just get put in this mood or this environment where someone just puts some wet blanket on top of you, and you just want to literally just go home and just sleep. There are days you get really, really frustrated with yourself. And I tell people, like, it's even hard for me to even understand it myself, because I fall into pits through it, like today and yesterday. Like, I've been falling through it every single day. And I'm like, we can't let those things be the moments that we remember. We got to make sure we focus on the true aspect to life, and that's making time for yourself and not putting yourselves in pitfalls, but also enjoying it. You don't want to say when you're 90 years old that someone like you made it through life. You want to say you had a fucking life.
Exactly. And I love that. And that's why when I get vacations, when I get my days off, I enjoy it. I live my life, and I do not want the office to call me at all. I just want to live. I don't want to have any regrets.
Yeah.
So let me live.
And now it comes to the point where you might get afraid that you're going to get called into work to work on your day off. So you just don't answer the phone anymore.
Exactly. That was the case for me this week. Okay. I was getting messages. My phone was ringing, and I was like, I am not even going to answer that phone because I returned to work on Friday.
Yeah. Do you get calls from random like automated companies like selling something?
Oh, no, I don't get that.
I was about to say, because I'll get a random number and I'll look at my phone. I'm like, if this is work, I'm going to be so pissed. It's my day off. I answer it and it'll be like, hi, is this Jim? I'm like, no. Well, maybe you can help me. And the first thing I think is like, how can I help you if you're looking for Jim?
For Jim, right.
But I'm like, thank God it's you though, because if that was work calling me, like I was not coming in. Like, yeah, it's like, it's also like where I saw it was like it was a really, really pestering thing. Like I'd be sitting like using the bathroom or something. Somebody calls me. I think it's like a grandparent that I don't have their number saved. I'm like, hello, and they're like, hi, are you interested in buying a car? I'm like, no, thank you. I'm using the bathroom, and then I'll hang up, and then like now I'm like, I answered. I'm like, dude, what are you selling, man? Because I swear to God, you gave me just a heart attack a minute ago because I thought you were something else. What are you selling, dude?
Fun fact. I used to be like a telemarketer like for a summer, and I used to call random people all the time and annoy them. I mean, I was working, but I could tell that they were annoyed that I was calling them, and they're like, how did you get my number? How did you get my name? And they were just really pissed off, a lot of them. So
that's why I want to know the statistical fact of people that work in that environment, like work as an IT guy that have to help people all day and like the dumbest ways possible. Is it on? Ma'am, did you turn your device on?
Oh yeah, that's sad.
The light blinking. I want to know what it's like in their daily life after being yelled at by people and talked to like they're just assholes. And, like literally stand on top of their roof and just look down off the building like I'm gonna jump.
Yeah.
That's got to be a thing, because I know there's also a thing that you guys like those type of IT people, they hang up. Like telemarketers will hang up on you if you start cussing at them.
I did that.
Yeah, that's like a thing. Because look, I sat 3 hours. I counted it. It was on my Saturday. I had a broken TV. Okay, 55-inch. That's right. Shout out 55-inch TV. But it broke, and I was like, oh my God. So I sat on hold for 3 hours. I swear to you, legit 3-hour phone call.
Oh my God.
The guy picked up. I'm like, is this a real fucking person? And then he hung up, and I said, no, it didn't just happen to me. And he hung up as soon as I said the F word. And I said, what? And I looked it up, and apparently if they hear any type of cursed language, they're immediately allowed to hang up on you. And I said, you legit hold all the power in my life. I had to sit on the phone again. Thank God the second time was only for an hour and a half, but my whole day was wasted just sitting around the house listening to the dumbest phone ringtone, whatever song that kept playing on repeat. I'm like, like knockoff trash of Billy Joel. I'm like, oh my God, play something interesting, please.
Yeah, I'm always like that. I'm always like, God, can they play something better than what they're playing? Sometimes they're playing commercials, and I'm like, I'm not in the mood to hear this one commercial over and over and over again.
Especially when the voice tells you, like, it'll just be a couple more minutes, and then you're on
yes,
another hour. Like, you
super
said a
annoying.
couple more minutes 1,000 times ago.
Right. And when they say, no agent is available to take your call right now, please hold. And I'm like, what?
Or they go, there's no agent available to take your call right now. Please call back later and they give the number, and then it hangs up automatically. You're like,
yes.
Did that just restart the process of me calling them again?
Again, right. It's very frustrating. Very frustrating. And I think we are bad people.
I think people choose to be bad, though. I do say one thing about people. I do believe all people suck. But hold on. But we have an aspiration to be great. We have something inside of each of us that makes us unique and makes us wonderful to be great. But we choose to let the sucky side show because it's more comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. That theory actually makes sense. So.
I see. Usually, when I say I think all people suck, then immediately someone goes, "Well," I'm like, "Hold on a second. Listen.
Let me finish.
Listen. That means myself, Robbie. I do suck. Sorry, but you do suck too. But hold on a second. We don't suck because we're taking the time right now to understand one another. We're taking the time we're taking the things, taking us out of that sucky position, bringing us to a new type of thing. And I tell people, you got to let them finish. You got to let them finish. Sometimes people I don't get political, but people look at Trump. I'm like, let him finish. He's got an end game. It's like Christmas. You got to wait for the present to be unwrapped before you you can't just see oh, it's cardboard. Let me tell you something. Every time my grandma unpacked a box and I started unpacking socks and stuff, I immediately wanted to stop unpackaging the box until I found a $100 bill taped at the bottom of it. And I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. You're saying, wait for it. Wait for it. And there's been times I've missed out on the 100. I've had
be patient.
I'm telling you, it's all about understanding when you have to really wait for anything, but people make justifications because they assume where it's headed. I'm like, you're going to assume that your life is going to keep being crap if you choose to live in a crappy lifestyle. So why don't you step it up and step out of that comfort zone a little bit?
Yeah, it all comes down to the choices that we make and how we choose to live our lives. And sometimes we need to do some introspection and really think about the type of person we want to be and what kind of attitude or emotion we want to project to the world and take it from there. Sometimes it starts with us and it starts at home, just looking at ourselves and being really honest. Then we can make the world a better place if we all do that.
I think it's really, really awesome what you do. So you have these people that come on that feel like they're in a hole in some way, but you talk to them and kind of pep them up a little bit.
That's it. That's the pep talk. You get it.
I freaking nailed it just by reading the motto, a podcast for young professionals by young professionals by two chicks with a podcast.
Yes.
So reading that and then understanding it, what types of things do you say to these people? You got to probably have some people that are just like, my life is just a never ending cycle of pure torture. And you're like, no. What's happening? Who took the tone out of your voice?
Yeah. We seek to provide tips for persons. So we share our experiences as hosts of the podcast to show that we can relate. We have been there. And so we can provide you with tips on how you can navigate that particular issue. We basically pep you up by giving you these tips. And these tips come from or experiences as young professionals who are also hosts of the show, but who work in corporate Jamaica.
And you understand what it's like too. You're also around the age group you're talking to. So it's not like it's not an elderly person talking down to a bunch of children. It's there's a more, I guess, a relatable experience, which makes it very easy for someone to kind of understand. But how often do you feel like a lot of them, the message is not truly sinking in?
Well, we had an episode on investment and the young professional, and we spoke about the stock exchange and why you should invest while you're young. And then I went on our Instagram page and I did a poll to ask persons if they were educated on the stock exchange and what it could do for them. And I think 80% of them basically said they were not educated on the stock exchange. They have no idea what the stock exchange can do for them. I'm like, I did an entire episode on how beneficial it is as a young professional to invest in the stock market. And yet you have 80% of people like so confused, you know? So I think after that, I did a post to just educate them some more. And I told them that the stock exchange has a free book that you can just go there and collect that will educate you more on what is it they do and how you can get involved. So, yeah.
How hard is it, at least? I mean, you got to have some days where it's really hard for you to even get onto your podcast to be able to give a pep talk because you
I
might not be
know.
feeling it yourself.
I know. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I need a pep talk. That's true. Sometimes I need a pep talk before I can record anything, but it's two of us. My co-host is my sister. So if I need a pep talk or I have an issue that I want to talk about, then she's right there to comfort me. And she'd give me the pep talk. And I'd be like, okay, I'm good now. I can record this. And in turn, if she needs a pep talk, I'll give it to her. And then we're good to go.
So do you find like having a co-host is probably more beneficial to you just because if you're feeling down, she can kind of spark you back up?
Right. I think having a co-host is like the best thing ever. Not only is she able to pep me up and vice versa, but she's able to offer a different insight into the discussion. We don't think alike. We don't see things the same way. So having her there, it provides a different perspective because you might have young professionals who view things her way and not my way. And so I think that perspective is very important. And that's why she's needed. And she's a very valuable asset to the podcast itself.
I think when you use that, like it really bolsters the conversations that you have because, like you said, it's bringing in new light questions that you might not have thought of to be brought up, and then it kind of creates a tangent or a vibe. It's actually very, very important, especially when you're doing something with like a group podcast where you have multiple hosts. On the concept of you have to make sure you all kind of have a correct mindset, but also you guys have different references, experiences through your life.
Exactly.
To the point where you're able to bring in different questions that probably wouldn't be asked by yourself. Like, if I do a podcast with someone from a different culture from me, so many questions are going to get asked that I might not even know anything about just because of how they've experienced their life.
I agree 100%. You definitely need the different perspective. So for you, with Out of the Blank, which clearly you do not have a co-host, right?
Nah, I try. I'm an intern, actually.
You are?
No.
How's that going?
I just tell people, like, on my Facebook, I'll be like, I'm an intern at this place, and like, wait, you don't host it, so can I get in charge with the main guy? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll send you his link. And it's like, really, it's because it's for everyone for a reason. Like, there's no restrictions on who can be on. I've gotten the weird people from Reddit on my podcast. I don't know if you know.
Really? Yeah, I know Reddit.
They always try and come on and play this character, but I always like, send me your Facebook so I can see who you are and then know who I'm talking to, because I'm not having Unicorn Farts 3 on my podcast. I'm going to have whoever that guy is that created that thing. And it's open for everyone. Like, I don't restrict anybody to be on it. I invite everybody to be on it. It's just
that's so nice and inclusive.
Yeah, it's like it's for everybody. Like, I tell my buddies, it's not my podcast. It's not your podcast. It's our podcast. It's like the world. We all share it and we all have a different view on it. We might as well talk about it.
So it's like when you have a guest, it's pretty much like they're your co-host as well, right?
Basically, yeah, they take it in whatever way they want to take it. If you wanted to take it into a motivational one, then we take it that way. If you wanted to take it down the rabbit hole of aliens and other things, I'm willing to go with that too. I think
aliens.
I mean, I've had people give me some theories that actually don't even really seem like theories anymore. They seem like they could be possible. I just try and be an open-minded as I possibly can be. And it's just conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't choose to have more conversations in your life, you're going to end up being disconnected and very, very dulled out.
And sheltered.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
we don't want that.
yeah, the whole reason why anybody even went to public school anyway. Well, it's a good thing to get more culture into your life.
Yeah.
Why does school have to give us that? Is it because there's more people that don't look like me there? Why don't we just advise ourselves to go to other areas where there's people that don't look exactly like us?
That's true. That's true. That's a good point that you raised right there. I love the concept of your podcast because having guests who are pretty much like co-hosts, that's very different. And I like it.
Well, you know what? I appreciate that. And the fact that you're able to come on to my podcast means a lot to me because I know it was kind of like a little different. People messaging you like, hey, come on to the podcast. And it's like, all right, what are you trying to sell here? It's
Yeah.
a lot of people do that. Like they go, why are you aiming towards me? I'm like, honestly, if you wanted my true opinion, I'm out here to hear everybody's story. So really, I'm just copying and pasting something and just posting on everybody's thing, hoping somebody kind of connects. Just because you find the people that really want to actually do a podcast are people that still want to like are producing their own podcast.
Yeah.
Mostly because they know they want their voice out there. A lot of people don't want their voice out there because they're afraid if they say something or they curse or they do some type of thing, it's going to display them in a way where they don't want to be recorded doing that. They don't want any information or evidence that happened. I tell people, you start looking at it like that, then there's something going on in your own life that you might need to work on.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. They're not brave enough to take the next step just yet, but hopefully one day they'll get there.
I have family that listens to my podcast. I had no idea about. They're like, you use a lot of language there, Robbie. I'm like, yeah, well, I also use language in my everyday life. I don't think it's a thing we should be looked at as stigmatized. I honestly think
I agree with that.
if more people cursed, if you just said it, it's not even to be angry. It's just
you're just expressing yourself. It doesn't mean that you're angry.
Exactly. And I'm like, I know that because I have a buddy who's from Boston and he cusses every other word. And it might be like you hear it, you're like, are you upset? But I've been around him so much now where I'm like, oh, you're doing micro stress stuff. You're doing stress management. You're literally like, if you drop like, oh shit. Like if you drop that, it's not even to be like strict or that you're angry. It's literally relieving a little bit of micro stress that's been piled up on your back.
Exactly. That and besides, profanity is really a social construct by society to deem certain words as bad. So the words technically aren't bad, but society's like, you say shit, that's bad. And I don't want to be your friend, but I don't think they're actually bad words. They're just words at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think if you start stigmatizing too many things, like, there's words that nobody should ever say. I'm like,
right.
If we look at that and we hold that demeanor the whole time, it's only going to bolster people to want to say it even more because of the fact you're telling them something they can't do.
Right. It's like kids. You say to them, don't do that, don't do this. Then they're going to do it. It's that simple.
Yeah, you tell the kid, don't run past the fence. And next thing you know, they're in the woods. You're like, I told you not to run past the fence. They're like, I didn't run past the fence, dummy. I actually walked past it. And then once I passed the fence, I ran.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I get it. You're clever.
Yeah. Loophole.
Yeah.
Loophole. Very clever.
I always think like there's so many wonderful things about people. If we just take more time to get to figure out what those things are, we'll be way happier as individuals.
Yeah, I agree. And as a society overall, we'll be just happier.
What would you say are some of the things that need to be worked on, or at least things that you could suggest be a change to people who are kind of stuck in this environment and kind of the main focus for your podcast a little bit?
I always say to people that you have to go into any environment that you go into with an open mind and try. If the environment is toxic, do not let it change who you are. The minute the toxicity starts to affect you, you are going to leave that place, being the person that you hate. And if you get to that point, you should never go back to that place. You should never go back to that work. You should never, because it has changed who you are for the worse. And I think every experience in life should make you a better person. not a worse person, but a better person. And a toxic environment, toxic relationship it just should not be tolerated. There is no exception. It just shouldn't be tolerated, period.
It's what Bruce Lee said. He said, God gave you this road because you were tough enough to walk it. So it's all about how are you going to use those things that are seen as roadblocks in your life and truly are you going to let them affect you and hold you down? Or are you going to try to rise above those and become who you are truly meant to be?
Meant to be. That is deep.
I am a deep individual, like kind of like it's like a pool a little bit. Like there's the shallow end, people in, and then there's the deep end. And I'm that guy that's like, let's just jump headfirst into the deep end.
Let's just do it. Hold my hand and let's just do it.
Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast, Stacy.
It was my pleasure, Robbie. I had fun.
I'm glad you did. All right, stay tuned for another episode of Out of the Blank podcast.